Welcome to today's session on the consumers in a circular economy. My name is Tobias Nielsen, and I'll be your moderator today. And we have a very exciting program ahead of us. We'll cover topics such as consumption, circular and sustainable life cycles or lifestyles, and also the role of companies. By the end of this session, we're hoping that you have a good insights into the impacts consumption has on the environment, but also on how circular economy can reduce these impacts. We're hoping to provide some insights on what are circular and sustainable lifestyles, and also to provide a good example of an ambitious company's circular strategy. Just to set things off, I'll present a short results from a survey by YouGov on consumptions. So this survey was sent out to people in the Nordic countries, asking about consumption and also about circular economy. So the first question that I will present the results from is, have you heard about the concept of circular economy? And this is good news for us here at a Circular Economy Forum. There's a lot of people that have heard about the concept, but there's still quite a few that are unsure about what the concept means. And as somebody who works on circular economy every day, I can understand that. It is a very broad concept. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that consumers are willing to go the extra mile to offer our products up for reuse rather than throwing it away when we're done with it. So there's a lot of people who said they've done this in the past. However, we're not so keen, and these are at least from this survey in the Nordics, on using products that have ended their lifestyles to reuse other people's products. So we're happy to sort of provide to let other people use our items once we're done with them. We're not so keen on using other people's products as a reuse. Or renting, for that matter. But to end on a more positive note, we can say that if the solutions are easy and ready at hand, we are very much keen on taking them up. So now, I'll go on with the next speaker. It's Mr. Jannis Bakas from the European Environment Institute. And so Jannis, please come up. Are there any consequences from our... Oh, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, this was just my way of setting the stage, but now we get to the real program, to the real speakers, so to speak. And Jannis, so are there consequences to our consumption? And do they matter? The floor is yours.
Thanks, Tobias. I guess I wouldn't be here if there weren't any consequences from our consumption, right? Thanks a lot for the organizers for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak a little bit about consumption in Europe and the consequences thereof. And I will try to reflect together with you if circularity can offer some solutions to this kind of consumption-based impacts. I will start with a relatively unsettling message, because we live in unsettling times. We have lived through what is called the Great Acceleration, and that is a summary of socioeconomic trends that have been, during the past century or so, skyrocketing, increasing exponentially, things like world population or GDP. And that has put some pressures on our Earth system through emissions of carbon dioxide, which are following a very similar pattern, the Great Acceleration. This has resulted on its turn to the appearance and really the intensification of environmental phenomena like climate change and biodiversity, which both follow exactly the same pattern of great acceleration. The impacts from this phenomena are intensifying with time. Yeah? And we have lived through that, and we also know, beyond any doubt, that it's the humans that are controlling the narrative regarding this kind of phenomena, because the scale in which we operate is huge, is unprecedented. Here you can see, for example, the amount of plastics we have put out there in nature compared to the amounts of animals living around us on the planet right now, and it's about double. So there is a link between what happens to our societies, the socioeconomic trends, pressures we put in the environment, and the impacts this causes on the planet. Yeah, there is a link. Why is that? Why does it have to be like this? Should there always be a link? Well, the answer is that we have created an economy or a growth model for our economy that is consumption-based. And that's perhaps okay, but it is also linear. So the economies that we have built around the world are there to satisfy our needs, to create prosperity for us, but they're based on a linear model. So we take resources, we extract things from the ground, we make stuff like products and so on, we use them, and when we don't need them anymore, we throw them back into the environment. That's the linear model I'm sure everyone is pretty much aware of. What's the problem with this linear model? The problem is that the extraction of natural resources from the ground comes with a cost, with a really high environmental cost. This is from the last report of the International Resource Panel that is going to be published again next year. And this one claims that half of the climate impacts that we're experiencing on the planet, 90% of water stress and 90% of the biodiversity loss, are all associated with the extraction and processing of natural resources that are needed so that they can satisfy the global demand for resource use. And that's, I would think, a quite substantial stress we're putting on the planet because of our demand for raw materials. Yeah? And we don't have any real evidence that our consumption is slowing down. These are graphs for the EU showing that the consumption in the EU is increasing. There's a little bit of a tilt in the end of the graphs because of the slowdown caused by economic measures during the pandemic, but this is probably a temporary anomaly, and our consumption will keep increasing. If we look into the actual impacts from our consumption, then we would have to refer to the so-called consumption footprint. The consumption footprint is a concept that is a weighted, let's say, summary of all the environmental harm that is caused on the planet because of our consumption in Europe. This is for the EU, no matter where this environmental harm happens. Materials and resources are extracted from anywhere in the world to satisfy the EU demand. So the consumption footprint in its nature takes a global perspective. Yeah? And if you sum all these different impacts up, you end up with a number that doesn't mean very much, but it is arranged here in a way so that we can see which areas of consumption are mostly responsible for the environmental harm our consumption has on the planet. Housing comes first with about a third of the impacts that we cause to the environment are because we need to build houses to live in, we need to heat them up, we need warm water to take showers with, and we also need electricity to plug and charge our phones. Followed by, after housing, it's food, because we need to eat, of course, and also investments, because we need to make roads and bridges, and our businesses and companies need to invest in machinery so that they can be ready for future demand and so on. If you take a closer look at the numbers of this consumption footprint for the EU, it is more or less stable. It's not completely stable, of course, it can never be, but it's not. It is more or less stable, but it is also a little bit decreasing. If you compare the value for 2010 and the value for 2020, the value in 2020 is slightly lower than in 2022. So we're improving. And if you remember, the consumption footprint is calculated based on the weighted average or the weighted sum of multiple environmental impacts. The reason for this slight reduction in the consumption footprint in the EU is climate change. We have been pretty good in tackling climate change. Everybody knows there's a lot more to be done if we want to, for the climate change to be mitigated properly. But so far we have done some progress, and that is acknowledged in the consumption footprint you can see. So climate change is the one that's driving our consumption-based impacts down for the moment. And that's good. That's good news. Yeah. So let's all rejoice because we're doing well. But is that enough So it's one thing to look at the trend that our consumption-based impacts are going down, and it's another thing to look at the level of our consumption. Is the level of our consumption impact sustainable? In order to answer that question, the European Commission's Joint Research Centre has done research around the planetary boundaries. The planetary boundaries is a concept which tries to to calculate the limit beyond which the planet is not, it cannot recover from the shock caused to it by our activities. Yeah? And you can see here for a number of environmental impacts, the planetary boundary limits have been transgressed. And one of them is climate change. And the limit for climate change, the planetary boundary for climate change, because of the EU consumption, has been transgressed more than 10 times. I would say that's a lot. I would say that that shows that the actual level of our consumption impacts are not sustainable. Yes, we have been doing progress because we have been addressing some quick fixes here and there, because we have been good at efficiency gains and technological improvements and so on. But still, we're quite far from the level, from the case where we can say that our consumption impacts are sustainable. It's okay to consume the way we do. So that means that it's about time to shift our thinking from an incremental change into a paradigm shift. Another reason to do that is because, according to the EA report published in 2020, State and Outlook of the Environment, it says that in the past we have been doing pretty well, but in the future, the outlook to 2030 looks a lot grimmer. That's because the low-hanging fruit has been already picked. There's no more easy and quick and cost-effective ways to address issues related to the low-carbon and resource-efficient economy. We need a paradigm shift. And we think that circular economy is offering such a paradigm shift, because circular economy, if you think about it, is a concept that aims to transform the relationship we have as an economy, as a society, with resources. Yeah? How do we do that? We narrow material flows. We use resources more efficiently, because that's always important. Yeah? Of course, we have been doing that quite a while. We've been quite good at this, but we can keep improving and be more efficient in the way we use resources. But we also need to slow. We need to slow the flow of materials in our economy by keeping the products in use longer. We also need to close material cycles through reuse and recycling. And that's how we will reduce the demand for natural resources. And if we reduce the demand for natural resources, we will reduce the environmental harm associated with the extraction and processing of natural resources. So, circular economy is a solution. How can we actually do it in practice? We, ourselves, the consumers, we need to change our habits. We need to consume differently. We need to shift our consumption to less material-intensive options. Product policy, increased recycling, and better information will help us do that. But we also need to consume less by buying fewer products. How can we do that? Because we could buy products that last longer. They have longer lifespans. So we fulfill our demands for consumption through products that last a lot longer than the ones we have now, through establishing business models that are more circular, through designing products so that they last longer and are easily recyclable at the end. My time's up, but I hope the message was true. I hope I gave you a good understanding of how our European consumption affects global supply chains, causes harm elsewhere in the world, and how the circular economy can transform the business model we're having and our relationship with resources so that we can mitigate this environmental harm. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yannis. And now our next speaker is Luca Consieme from the Hot and Cold Institute, who will talk about sustainable lifestyles in a circular economy.
Thank you. Thank you. Sustainable lifestyles. So let's start defining what we mean by lifestyles. Of course, today, a lot of our lifestyle is defined by what we consume. I sometimes joke, I live in the center of Berlin, and sometimes it feels like I cannot do anything, any activity, without buying something, without having to spend some money. But our lifestyles are more than consumption, of course. They are also what kind of citizens we are, what kind of friends we are, what kind of neighbors we are, what kind of parents we are, if that applies, and what values drive our choices. Now, why lifestyles are important? They are important because, and in particular, their consumption aspects are very much linked with the environmental impacts of what we do. For example, more than 60% of the global carbon footprint is directly related with our consumption. One important thing to say right away, though, is that we consumers are not the only directly responsible for our environmental impacts. First and foremost, the context and the environment where consumption takes place have to be changed. And this is the responsibility, first of all, of governments and institutions to create an environment where then circular and sustainable businesses can thrive, and only then, when sustainable options are actually accessible, then we can point the finger towards consumers and say, you have actually these choices, make the right one. Consumption and lifestyles and their environmental impacts are characterized by huge inequalities today. Here you can see an example from our report on fashion consumption in the G20, and you can see what you can see in many other consumption areas. Higher income groups associated with higher environmental impacts. Here we found that the top 20% income earners in the G20 have a carbon footprint over 20 times higher than the bottom 20%. So what we can do? Of course, these inequalities also imply that a certain group of people are more responsible and they should change their lifestyle to a larger extent. And by the way, this top 20%, these include everybody in this room, just to be clear. We're not just talking about billionaires. There are three key approaches to change lifestyles in terms of reducing environmental impacts. One is to improve the efficiency, so switch to a product or services that uses less resources. For example, instead of using an SUV, I switch to a smaller car, which uses less fuel. The second one is by changing the modes of consumption, such as, for example, I stop driving to work, and instead I use a bike-sharing service. The third one is to consume less, to reduce the amount of consumption, such as, for example, I travel less or I fly less often. Now, you can see how many circular solutions fit one or more of these modalities, but I feel that there is still a little bit of underrepresentation of sufficiency approaches or approaches that aim at tackling overconsumption. And this, to me, poses a risk and is also conceptually wrong in the framework of the circular economy. Why it poses a risk? It poses a risk because it risks of creating an antagonistic view or narrative of circular solution versus sufficiency solutions. While we see in our research, and we are seeing in research in general, that sufficiency approaches are the one with the highest potential for reducing environmental impacts. Here, for example, from our 1.5 lifestyles report, you can see how for food, the highest impact is by switching to a vegan diet, which basically implies reducing substantially the amount of meat and the amount of dairy we eat. For transport, similar story, flying less, especially international flights. That's by far the most important, the most impactful. So we cannot leave this out of the circular economy. Another example here from our fashion report, buying less clothes has a higher impact than all other solutions we analyzed, which include also more often cited circular solutions such as buying second-hand. This is also in the G20. Now, I say that this is also conceptually wrong to keep sufficiency out of the circular economy. And in fact, if you see representations of the circular economy, such as, for example, this one from the European Environment Agency, there is that section at the bottom, which basically says that at the basis of the circular economy, there is the goal to minimize the use and destruction of resources and the environmental impacts, if you wish. So this is the overall goal. And this cannot be understood as something to be done at a per product basis or per unit of GDP basis. This has to be in absolute terms, as we live in a global environment with a global pool of resources. However, when we talk about changing lifestyles, we also have to think about how acceptable these changes are, how feasible these changes are, how inclined society would be to adopt these changes. And there is, unfortunately, a tension between the highest adoption rates and the most impactful lifestyle changes. So the most impactful tend to be also the ones that are more difficult to be approached and to be adopted by people. However, sufficiency approaches also have another benefit, which is that they allow for tackling at the same time multiple environmental impacts. Here you can see, for example, another example from the EA, from textiles. Different fibers have different impacts in terms of climate change, land use, etc. So focusing on materials may hide that I'm just, making worse another environmental area, if you wish, or increasing another environmental area, whereby if I reduce the amount of volume of clothes, then I will be able to tackle at the same time all of these impacts. Similarly here, from our analysis, export of second-hand clothes and donated clothes to third countries, sometimes they end up directly, about 30% of it, in fact, end up directly in landfills or incinerated at destination. So it's really not helping. Truly circular approaches then must tackle multiple environmental impacts and must also consider rebound effects. We've introduced this fair consumption space in our 1.5 report, which is a space where consumption is kept below an environmental threshold and above a social floor where basic needs are met. This is the space where the circular economy have to operate. If we don't live within this space, circular solutions in general would not be effective enough. It's a precondition for circular economy to actually be effective and actually become a solution to our challenges. We are exploring this and other questions in a number of projects, and in particular in two European projects, Horizon 2020. One is called EU 1.5 Lifestyles, where we are also looking at the barriers to lifestyle change. And the other one is PS Lifestyle, which you will hear about more later on. But I wish to conclude reminding you that sustainability must not be and is not necessarily a narrative or a story or a tale of sacrifice, of having to give up on something. It is also, first and foremost, a tale of living better life. This is what it's about. And so we must recognize that by implementing circular solutions, reducing environmental impacts, we will also have better health, physical and mental. We will have better societies, more cohesive, where people trust each other more equal society, more engaged communities, and we will ultimately also have a more resilient economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And thank you for reminding the importance of sufficiency as well. and that also we will have multiple benefits if we do live in circular and sustainable lifestyles. Up next is Jussi Nevalina from the Finnish Innovation Fund, Sitra, who will introduce a new and exciting tool that can guide us on how to live more sustainable and circular lifestyles.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. Well, I'm here to demonstrate an app that Sitra is designing with the hope to inspire, encourage, and support people on their path towards more sustainable and positive lifestyle. So sort of an answer to what Luca was raising. What's the challenge? Here is one way to deal with that. We'll do a demonstration of this app in a minute, but before I do, I want to say one or two things about it. First of all, it's an app that's been designed with 8 European countries in close partnership. We have dear partners in every one of the countries. Luca is one of them, and there is plenty more. It's also funded partly by European Union. Now, the app has its roots and sort of origins here in Finland, where Sitra built a lifestyle test some years ago. That's a carbon footprint test, very quick to complete. Actually has been quite a success. More than 1.4 million people, or it's been done more than 1.4 million times here in Finland. And before we dive into the demo, I actually want to answer the question that normally does not get answered, which is the question why. Why are we building an app? And more importantly, perhaps, why are we here today to talk about it? And I've got short answers for both. Now, many of you will know that we can trace back about 70% of the carbon emissions to individuals, people like us here today. The way we live our life, what we eat, how we travel, how we live, and how we shop. Now, clearly, as Luca pointed out, this is only one side of the coin. And we clearly recognize that we need to work across society, across companies, organizations, governments to address this. But yet we feel it's quite important to inspire change at individual level because of this number, and also because it is important and people are willing to, if they only knew where to start and how to do it. But why here today? Why in this forum? Why in Circularity Forum? Here's another number, 65%. This test has 2 parts. It has a carbon footprint test, very quick to do, less than 5 minutes, no background information needed. And then you get tailored action recommendations. What might I do to reduce my footprint? When I look at an average person doing this test and I look at circularity-related actions, actually it turns out that an average person could reduce their footprint by up to 65% simply by using circular actions. So quite relevant for this audience today, and I will hope to show you how actually in practical examples. I'll say 2 more things about the app and then we dive in. So first point, it's tailor-made, and tailor-made in 2 different ways. The numbers and calculations in the app are country relevant. They are specifically for that country. So if a person in Finland does the test, they can know that these numbers actually reflect the reality in Finland, same in Germany or Estonia. Typically you see calculators that cut across Europe or worldwide using averages. This is tailored for each country. More importantly though, it's tailored for the user. When I answer it, I get suggestions that reflect my answers, tailor-made for me, so I could act, do something today, keep doing something more tomorrow. Last thing before we go. In recognition of the other side of the coin, that we have to act across organizations, companies, and governments, we are hoping to build a knowledge base out of the app, fully anonymously, but every time someone uses it, we record the clicks into a knowledge base, essentially saying this is the average footprint of the test takers, these are the actions they are picking, these are the ones they are rejecting. So the hope here is that this anonymous knowledge base can be used, of course, for research, perhaps more importantly for policy design, such as incentive schemes, or maybe even for product and service design in companies. So now I'm going to do the demo in 2 parts. And for the first part, I'll invite Jonis back on stage to join me up here. Welcome again. We played around with Jonis with the app this week, Monday, yesterday, and actually last week too, sort of reflecting his lifestyle and looking at what sort of footprint he has and what the app might recommend for him to do. And so we'll sort of do a repeat of that experience here today, and then I show you the live demo at the end. So that's the app landing screen. So it just says what it does. I'm going to hit start. Next up is the questionnaire. It falls into 4 lifestyle categories, about 5 to 7 questions for every category. First one is housing, then you get transportation or mobility, food, and shopping. Now, these questions are quick to answer, and again, you don't need to go look for your electricity bill to answer. You don't need any background information. And I'll give you a couple of examples here. So first question is, how many people in your house? Well, Jonis has a member, four-person family. So we'll answer 4, and I'm just going to speed through the rest. And there is about 5 questions in housing. You see on very top, the orange bar is saying Jonis's housing footprint, 1,800 kilos, a moderate one. And then it says, next up, let's look at mobility. Here again, 5 to 7 questions. First one is about driving. How many kilometers per week do you typically drive or ride with someone? Jonis doesn't drive much, he's 50K. And then we sort of did the test, and you look at his footprint though, 8,000 kilos, that's because he flies a lot. Just like Lucas said, flying is definitely one of the big ones, everyone will know that. And then on food, like me, Jonis is a mixed eater. So we click not vegan, not vegetarian. A little prompt here to think about vegan and vegetarian diet. And then when we click through, his footprint, as you can see, is quite small, the red one. He doesn't eat much red meat. And so now for purchases, let's slow down a little bit, explore this area. It's quite an interesting one from circularity point of view as well. And the first question is, how much do you like shopping? And I'll invite Jonis to remark on this one, like how much do you shop compared to an average person, a friend of yours or so? Jonis, please.
Thanks, Jussi. When we were talking about this yesterday, I promised I will not keep any secrets here. I will do my walk of shame and say that I really shop a lot. I like my shopping, and I think I do it a lot more than average. So it's the last one for me.
Okay. Well, let's be honest. We'll click the last one and we go next. Here, at the very heart of circularity, the question on how much do you use pre-owned or how much do you buy pre-owned goods? And another reflection from you, Jonis, on this pre-owning, or as we say sometimes, second-hand. Probably pre-owning is a better one.
Yeah, I don't really like this second-hand business very much, so I don't do it. I never buy it, and I don't think it will do a big difference for the environment if I do, actually.
Okay. Well, we'll better say never, although never say never. Let's see what it says in the recommendations. Finally, I know you have a pet, and I think it's a dog, right?
I have a dog, yes.
Yeah. I know you don't much indulge him besides for love. You don't buy diamond necklaces, but I know in Copenhagen the food is pretty expensive, so you said 50 to 100 euros a month you go sort of
it's
to feed them.
For humans and dogs as well, yes.
Yes. Okay, so now that completes the questionnaire. I skipped through it. I'll show you in the live demo, but essentially this is going to take you about 5 minutes to do, and then you get a little tick done, and now interestingly you get your footprint. So right on top you see the bar, which by now the user has seen a number of times, and then you get the number right in the middle of the screen. So nearly 13,000 kilos above average for Jonis because of his flights. We immediately compared that to the 1.5 degree lifestyle below in the text. This section is quite rich in the app because we know a lot of people want to explore how is my footprint, how is it made up. So we give if you scroll the screen, you get a pie chart. You can scroll further and you sort of see the top 3 drivers, flights, and shopping. So interestingly, Jonis, to your previous comment that it doesn't so much matter, it's your second highest driver. And if you keep scrolling, you get the whole rundown. we think people are going to be quite interested in understanding what makes up their footprint, but also our goal is to still build awareness of what my footprint is. And we know not everyone is aware, and they will be curious to know, even so much so that there is a button to immediately retake the test if you want to, see what might happen. On top, you can share your results, invite friends to join. So that's the first bit of the app. Now the next bit is all about change. Clearly, we all hope there will be change. There won't be any change without any action. And people, even if they know their footprint, oh my goodness, that was pretty high, what shall I do? And we don't want people to get frozen in the headlights and go like, I can't do anything, I'm worried now. And all we manage to do is to generate anxiety, which isn't great, because you got to act and do something. And so there is a whole section on what might be small daily changes you could do, or might be bigger ones, life level things like moving possibly. So these are tips, and let's look at what the app gave Jonis here. These tips are organized like the test in 4 categories. We always show the top 3 most impactful ones first. You can click for more, about 10 to 15 recommendations per category. So we start by housing. First recommendation Jonis gets is to use wind power for electricity. He's buying ordinary electricity today, so even just by switching the electricity provider, we can immediately see he would get 4% lower footprint. The kilos are there, he can immediately see the impact. Well, that feels good, I can do something, and that's not like a lot of work. He could skip the action if it's not relevant. This could be quite interesting for the knowledge base. A lot of people skipping this action. Can we do something about it? Can there be an incentive scheme? If he doesn't quite understand the headline or wants to know more, you can click. The card opens, it explains why this is an important action. And same thing happens for every category. So in transportation, unsurprisingly, suggestion is do not fly quite as often or stay longer. And then in food, it says, hey, if you were to trial vegetarian diet for about a week, every once in a while, you could reduce your footprint by about 6%. And then it sort of gradually goes towards full vegan diet recommendation as you open up the cards. Now I want to pause on shopping. Again, Jonis, here interestingly, if you were to consider pre-owned, you said it wouldn't matter much, but look, we don't assume you buy everything pre-owned, but significant part, and you could save 8% of your footprint, 1,000 kilos. That's 1/8 of your flights right there, just by maybe buying that phone from Swappy instead of directly from Apple. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a quite substantial mitigation potential here, about a ton. That's quite a lot. Thinking back of my own presentation, I hope most of you were here since then. I tried to make the point that making material stuff comes with an environmental burden, because some material had to be extracted from the ground and processed so that we can make the new stuff we want to consume. And that environmental burden associated with the resource extraction is quite substantial. So if I consider buying something that already exists, that doesn't have to extract all this material from the ground, then that's the damage I would avoid, yeah? And that's quite substantial. So in retrospect, it does make quite a lot of sense that if I consider pre-owned, I would have a significant reduction in my footprint, yeah?
Yeah, it's nearly 10%, rounding it up. Now, of course, I open up the only buy what you need. I think probably for all of us, me included, we can all reflect on what are our needs versus our many wants, and probably gear our life more towards satisfying the needs and some of the wants, not all of them. And that's an important reflection. It can also, obviously here, Jonis was a high shopper. The app doesn't assume he would stop shopping. It assumes that he'd reduce it a little bit, and that's how this reduction gets calculated. So both of these actions feel meaningful, impactful for Jonis, so I'll pick both. What the app does, you see at the bottom of the screen, 15%. So it sort of indicates when you pick an action, that's how much your footprint would go down. Helpful in planning. You could uncheck the action, I went down, up, okay, let's do this action, that. And you play around here and look at the action list up to 100. We never show 100 for any person, but there is multiple. And then when you're ready, you hit next and you get to the final piece of the app, which is the summary of sort of your plan. I will do, or what in this case Janis is going to do. The plan page is showing you first your own footprint on top, like before. Then it has a big bar, high bar in the middle, which is the goal. It's my footprint with the goal post. It's empty because I haven't ticked any actions done. And then it shows what actions Janis has picked. So he's taken those two shopping-related actions on board. And the thought here is that people will come to the app, click, I did something. And when they click, I've completed a thing, I made a step. We do celebrate because it's a worthy moment. People have made an action, they've changed a little bit, footprint goes down. You can see now the bar has gone up green. And let's do another celebration because you know what, progress is great, let's recognize it. Hooray, another champagne moment, and Janis is at 15%, well done. Just by two actions that are circularity related, 15% down, even though his footprint has a lot of flying, you can still do meaningful action like the wind-powered energy. Final thing I want to say about this app before we go in the live demo is that at the very end of the screen in the plan, when you scroll, you'll see something called the help prompt. We know change isn't easy. It's never easy to do these changes. And we want to offer people a way to leave feedback. What sort of help might you be looking for in order to really put this in practice? And this is important, of course, to give a sentiment that you're not alone in your change journey. It's going to help us to evolve the app. It may lead to other directions too, like maybe we need a community of mentors. Maybe there should be help pages. It's important for the data or knowledge base because you know what? When people ask for help, maybe we could design products and services that help. Maybe we could design better policies that helps people to do these changes. So that's this. Do you have any closing remarks, Janis, and the results and anything surprising to you you haven't already said?
No, not really, but I'm just going to go down and now start thinking how to implement my action. So thanks a lot. Thanks for the help.
Yeah, exactly.
To you and also to the tool, of course.
Good. I'll take now the risk to do the live demo. Let's see what's going to happen. We can probably, I was supposed to click to my prompt, which is, well, yeah, Benjamin is on it. Great. Whoa, it works immediately. Let's see how quick the network might be. I'm on my phone. It's my phone, my personal phone. That's the app live. I'm using Finland. As I live in Finland, I'm a Finn, and I'm hitting start. So we get to the first question, and it's just my wife and I. We do live spaciously because we were planning to have a family originally. It never happened. We buy green energy. We live in a terraced house. It's built before 90s, but energy refurbed. We use geothermal heat. Southern Finland, we keep it pretty cool. And is this the demo? Here we go. Almost the demo effect. About 30-minute showers. 1478 is my footprint for housing. Now, what about moving? I do drive because I go to my summer house. I have an old car, 16 years old, petrol. My wife rides with me. I don't much use public transport. I don't fly much. I do travel sometimes by ferry. I do bike, not much in winter though. And then food, mixed eater. I probably eat a little less. I eat 1 to 3 times a week max beef or hard cheese, 4 to 7 times chicken or fish, 4 to 7 times milk, quite a lot of coffee, a beer every once in a while. I eat 1 or 2 meals out. I don't throw much food away, and I got my food counted for. I don't shop actually much at all. Boring person in that sense. I don't buy secondhand either, which I need to learn. I do have a summer house, a specialty in Finland. I use it with my wife and some other folk. We have 2 dogs, but they don't eat much. They're small little things. Sausage dogs, okay? You know the ones, they're quite angry, maybe because they don't eat much. There is some questions I'm going to skip for now. It's just age, where do you live, because we want to cross-section the data. I'm going to go to my results. Okay, thanks a lot. You answered. Demo is working good. And here we go, 7,000, a little less than average in Finland. I could share this. I could challenge my friends now. Look, Mr. Thomas, my dear friend, why don't you do this test? I can send him the image of my footprint. I just hit invite, and then you can do mail or what you got here, like WhatsApp. I actually send it mostly to my wife. She loves to get this. I send them probably 20 lately, but she always says she'll test. I don't know if she did, but she knows I'm testing. So I could just, if I feel a little bit like I don't want to share, but I wish to download, I hit download, and then I can download to my device. I can open this image. I could keep it in case I want a record of my result and I want to reflect on it alone, not sharing. Okay, so that was sort of that. You can scroll the page. We compared the 1.5 degree target to people in your country, other countries. You get the actual, the pie chart. You get the breakdown: car, holiday, home, heating. You get shopping, all of that. And then you could retake the test at the very bottom. There is a link to the theory, calculations background, but we also think not everyone wants to see it, so we sort of have a relaxing picture of a forest before we dive into the PDF that's 11 pages of theory. But it's downloadable in case you really want to double click and get it. But then let's look at the tips, right? So these are the tips now, based on my answers, what this would recommend me to do. Well, since we have a lot of space with my wife, the app imagines that we might build a house one day. And it says, build a wooden house, class A wooden house. Or it suggests we could start producing energy, solar energy. Wow, 10%. That seems like smart. Why don't I choose that? And then a big one for me, don't heat your summer house in winter because you're not there. Some people want to keep it dry. Yes, there are methods. I can get a sensor that tells me when it's wet or moist, and then you can heat. You don't have to keep basic heat on. So I'm choosing that. I'm at 16.6% down. Now, I don't want to build a house, so you could skip an action, right? And this is quite interesting now for the database, right? Skip. Why do you skip? Well, I don't know. I don't know how to build a house. It seems expensive. And then you confirm. Now imagine this data now saying that most Finns would like to do something they can't, and here's why. Now you can start concluding product, service, or policy conclusions out of it. So then you sort of get this little note, confirm, done, not that action for me. Transport, well, giving up my car isn't feasible, but biogas maybe. But hey, wait a minute, bioethanol, actually in Finland is produced from plastic waste. It's CO2 neutral. Doesn't load the planet because it's not like cultivated bioethanol. Now, that seems smart. I did check previously. I could convert my 16-year-old Golf into a E85 car, and that's a life cycle analysis wise quite a smart thing because it's perfectly fine. So I'm going to pick this, and now I'm 30% down. That seems quite good. I can become a vegan. I don't know how. It's quite a big step. Vegetarian for a year, But I can certainly choose local food more often, and that's already meaningful. And then things and purchases. Remember, I don't shop much, so I'm getting now quite different actions. Care and repair. Yeah, okay, that's good. And then now I'm already at 42%. And as I said, you could get more recommendations by clicking more, and there is more on you can explore. But let's just hit next, see what happens. Now we prompt people to sign in. Would you like to save your plan, sign in and keep the plan? But we can also continue without signing in, remove all the friction, hit the plan, and here's the summary. So my goal, I set there about 40% or so of my current footprint. The actions are here, as we said. You can still skip them, you can go back, you can undo them, you can still see more if you wish to understand why did you pick it again, and then you can complete. Then the help card is here, like I said, if you need any help, you can go for it. Now let's complete one action, hooray. Another champagne toast, and then you can see the bar goes up. We can share your plan just as much you could share your results, because we think that people might want to say, hey, look, my result was this, my plan is this, what about you? Get on board, join me, let's do the challenge. And then I'll show you the help card. It didn't quite finish, this is an alpha version, it's a demo. The thought though is that there will be options here. We haven't just inserted them, this got built on Monday, I think, yeah, Monday. So we'll put here options. What sort of help do you wish to see? And people will then leave feedback, again, helping us to evolve the app, but helping maybe policymakers, company decision makers, mayors and others to know what help are people looking for. Hey, there are no charging points in rural Finland. Maybe we need to put in place a charging scheme so people can go electric in their car. So let's just cancel. And that's the app. I think I've done it all. Didn't crash. Very happy about that. And we are just about on time. So I thank you for your attention. I wish you a good afternoon, and let's change. Okay?
Thank you, Jussi, for pointing us towards how we can do this change. And I think, Janis, I think we need to talk about your flying and shopping habits after this session. So we heard about consumption. Consumption matters. It impacts our environment. We've learned that sustainable lifestyles are important. They're key to changing our impacts on the environment. And we've also gotten the guidelines of how we can do this as consumers. But of course, it's not only about consumers. Policymakers, corporations, they're also really important in this journey. And for our next speaker, we have Katsi Ihamarki from Messukeskus Groups, who will talk about how companies can use circular economy to reduce their impacts both internally, but also via their products. So, Katsi, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hey, great to be here after all the good speakers and demo. That was interesting. I did the version yesterday as well, and I was like, no, this cannot be true. And then I tried again, and I followed it up. And I think us companies have lots to do also in this, so helping you as a consumer to make better choices as well. Here I'm trying to tell a little bit what we at Messukeskus Group are doing for designing for circularity and longevity. And by the way, the company itself will be 375 years next year. So we've been designing for longevity and circularity already for quite a long time. But let's start with the video about the company.
Good design starts with questions. How to spark joy? How to increase well-being? How to bring family and friends together? Pioneering design is born out of curiosity and courage. It's about putting your hands in the dirt, exploring unexpected paths. Every mistake, every failure opens up new possibilities. What does it take to create something extraordinary? A combination of craftsmanship and passion. To design is to think beyond the obvious, to find new solutions. It can be messy, but nothing of value is ever achieved without effort. Thoughtful, honest, captivating, timeless. Good design makes a lasting impact on people's lives. It ignites their curiosity, inspiring them to act and bring their dreams to life. At Messukeskus Group, we embrace the power of premium design in everything we do. We are the global home of design-driven brands for indoor and outdoor living. We create change, grow with compassion, and celebrate the everyday. Since 1649, we have made life better for each other and the world around us. Pioneering design to make the everyday extraordinary.
Okay, wasn't this great? At least for me, it still kind of brings tears to my eyes because it's in the heart of sustainable lifestyles as well. It's in the heart of the sustainable production, sustainable consumption as well. Sustainability is part of our strategy, as it is for many of the companies, at least here in Finland these days as well. So this is not extraordinary, but I wanted to show which are the enablers. We see sustainable production, sustainable actions as an enabler for our strategy, not taking this from the risk point, but rather from the opportunity point of view. We have 5 key targets, but also wanted to show here how we have combined the purpose of the company for our sustainability actions. So pioneering design against the throwaway culture and making the everyday extraordinary for our own people, but as well for our consumers and other stakeholders. These are the 5 key targets as what we have in our operations, in our ESG strategy. And I will concentrate now on the circularity. The target is quite ambitious. By 2030, a majority of the net sales would come from the circular products and services. We are now at 9%, so towards 2030 there is lots to do. Of course, we at the same time have targets for emission reductions and also helping our suppliers to reduce their emissions or help them to work on the circularity target as well. And they are the ones, of course, who are vital for us getting our circularity target in place by 2030. Then again, safe workplace is important as well as inclusive workplace. But this is an example. This is not reality yet, but this is how we think about the circularity. And this is from the brand Fiskars example. So we can reduce some of the materials or replace them for less CO2 or less footprint on the biodiversity, not using the virgin materials. Then we sometimes need to add some material in some parts of the product to make it last longer, because the long-lasting products and also the quality of our products is in the heart of the circular economy, in the heart of our sustainability story as well. So we are not replacing any materials, let's say the virgin plastic compared to the circular plastic, if it means that it halves the life cycle of that product. So trying to find the optimal balance there. Then we are using already as we speak the net zero steel, net zero recycled steel. We try to find as much as we can the recycled and recyclable plastics that might be also bio-based, but of course we try to keep the quality and longevity of the products in place at the same time. Then again, we should design for modularity, spare parts, so that and taking into account that the wearing parts remain the same from the following generations of the same product, so that you can really repair the product if something goes wrong. But of course, the majority of our products are designed for the long lasting, so the spare part design is not really in place yet for all the products, but we try to go towards that direction. Then again, also giving the information for our consumers, giving the data about the sustainable choices on the materials, that might be visible for all of us with the number 11. So whenever we have the digital information about our products in the barcode, for instance, or in the example like this, there we could tell more about how to use, how to prepare, repair, how to recycle the product itself. And then, of course, maybe designing for a share use service or the buyback vintage service. And about that, we have an example already. In our Iittala stores, there is a vintage service where Arabia, Iittala and Rörstrand products are taken back. So you can recycle your own products there. And maybe then the coming days, Jussi and Janis and the others can also start using the circular services. But this has really been launched already 2019, but it hasn't really taken off yet. So we have to be also modifying our services so that they will be more interesting for our consumers and our customers as well. But the pan care has taken off very well. The pan care means that with some of our pans where there is ceramic coating, when it wears off, if it wears off, you can take your product back to the store and we recoat it. So we are actually giving a afterlife for the product. So once you buy the first pan, you know that there will be an afterlife for this pan also later. This type of services, I think, we will design more and more in the future, and this has been really popular also with the consumers. So when you are making the decisions to buy this pan or that pan, if you think well ahead, you know that there is an afterlife for the product and you can take it back to our store and recoat it. Then again, of course, we are using more and more of the recycled materials in our products, but there are still some limitations, for instance, for ceramics. Up to 10-15% is the maximum that we can use at the moment. But I think we are developing and we are pioneering in this, and hopefully in the coming years the number will be bigger also for the ceramics. Now for the plastics, of course, this is already working well. But then again, walking the talk, expectations from our consumers and our retailers, for our retail resellers are rising. We have to be able to reply to their demands, but also we have the role that we can also educate our consumers, our customers. We can tell how to use our products better. We must tell also about the production facilities. We have to tell also about the material choices that we made. But the consumers also value progress over perfection. We Finns, at least, have tendency only tell when everything is ready, when everything is 100% in place. But we should also tell about the story about our journey towards the perfection. So taking the consumers, taking the customers along to our journey, going towards the circular economy, the targets that we have set ourselves. And the suppliers, they do play a key role, working together with them, working together, trying to also achieve their targets, because many of the resellers, big supermarket chains, for instance, have their own targets. We have the ability to work together with them. So this is not only us reaching our targets, but all the others, all the other players, all the stakeholders, consumers also to reaching their targets for the more sustainable lifestyle, more circularity in the choices that they make. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And now I'd like to invite all the speakers back to the stage, and we'll have a short panel discussion. So just some key reflections from all of you, preferably one, maybe two key reflections on what were the key messages. Did you learn something today? Do you see a connections between your presentation and some of the others? Yeah, these types of questions. So I think we'll go in the order of the original presenters. So we'll start with Yannis and Luca, Yushi, and then we'll finalize with Katsi. Okay, so Yannis,
I'll go first.
Go
yes.
ahead. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I thought there were a lot of really interesting presentations, a lot of useful information. What I'm reflecting is on circular economy, and it's, well, mainly on drawing conclusions from my own intervention. I think we all understand here that circular economy offers an alternative to the way we do things so far. And I think it's quite obvious that it is quite imperative we do this change. Because the linear model we have so far doesn't work anymore, because it's based on a very intensive use of resources, and that intensive use of resources has environmental consequences that matter. They're putting a lot of strain in our environment, and we need to change that. As consumers, we have a role to play, as other actors, of course, do, yeah? But we need to start thinking how we can change our consumption patterns. We need to consume differently, not buy a car, but share one. We need to consume less. Buy product, keep it for a long time by repairing it, by making sure that the product you get is a long-lasting one, and so on and so forth. I think, for me, that was the main key takeaway from today. Yeah? The others might disagree. Let's see.
Yeah, no, I do agree with everything you said. Yeah, I think it's all about what we have to learn, and you see, and the tool, PS Lifestyle tool, is also about that. Learning about yourself, your footprint, then learning about what you can do and do it. But also, from the other perspective, is a tool for getting information. As you know, what are the challenges that people is facing when it comes to changing their lifestyles? And we also have to learn from businesses that, you know, very old businesses, very pioneering businesses that I'm sure have faced many of these challenges, probably alone. Now there is maybe a bigger movement, but and that found ways creatively, maybe without even the support of lots of institutional stuff, to do that anyways. And so we have all to learn from each other, different communities.
Very good. Well, I'll say two things. First, the most important, it starts here. In this room, every one of us in here, you know the truth. Let's just go for it. So that's the serious note. The less serious, I love Fiskars. It's one of my sort of, I don't know, the dream product, these real things you can chop wood with. I always thought it was a perfect example of the architectural principle of venustas, firmitas, utilitas, basically meaning beauty and function in balance. So you can't go over on function because you get super boring, over on beauty and you're not anymore so practical. But now maybe we need to add the cyclitas, because I was so impressed with your example that you've considered so broadly how circularity can be taken into account in product design. So I'm even more of a fan now, so I'll be advocating for you.
Okay, that was good. And one tip, by the way, when you saw the pruner, doesn't it look like a bird, if you think about it? There's an eye and there is a
True.
Yeah, so that's one thing also that you didn't know. But anyway, yeah, I have 4 sons and they all love vintage. And I'm happy for the next generation. I think we have to take the advice from them, not the vice versa this time. So they already, most of their clothes are from the vintage and secondhand. So they are better consumers, I guess, than we are, at least in this sense. But anyway, as I said, it's important for us as a company also to be able to offer these services and market these services better so that they are desirable for consumers. So, and then also we have this educational role and we have to educate ourselves and we have to educate the other stakeholders from the aspects that we can. And then we need to learn from you also, taking into account the kind of a larger patterns in the society. So this was really good for me as well to learn from this side and then maybe bringing the information back to our organization and to our designers, because the pioneering design is the one that I think takes the challenge.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, well, thank you very much for these key messages. And I think this concludes the session for today. So thank you very much for coming. I hope you learned a lot about the impacts of consumption, but also importantly, how to change it. And of course, change comes from within. So on that note, I'd like to end the session. Thanks a lot and enjoy the rest of the World Circular Economy Forum.